Welcome to Extracurricular. I am your co-host, Eddie Geller.
And I am your other co-host, Stephanie Vanos, also a school board member for Orange County Public Schools. But here I am, unofficially, as always.
You really nailed that.
Well, thank you. I've been practicing.
Are you practicing when I'm not around?
Yes.
Okay.
All the time.
Do you feel like if you don't get it right, you're disappointing me?
Perhaps.
Okay. Well, I don't want you to feel that way. You're never going to disappoint me. You're always wonderful.
Okay, this is weird.
I don't think it's weird. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Always so delightful to be here with you, Steph. If you're listening and you're not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe. Consider it. Do it. Take action. That sort of like, motivation to just do the thing that you've been thinking about. You've been thinking about subscribing, do it.
Be a doer.
Be a doer. What about rating us? Steph, should they rate us?
They should if they're going to give us 5 stars, yes. Wait, is 5 stars is the top, right? Is this like restaurants?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I hope you don't have 5 scars. That was...
True. Maybe I need more coffee.
The viewers,
5 stars.
5 stars, no scars.
Exactly.
I'm getting that on a t-shirt. We are recording this intro on Labor Day. Shout out to organized labor unions, backbone of this country. Steph, what do you think about organizing this podcast, forming a union on this podcast? Can we do that?
Wait, what?
Yeah. So I think as hosts, we probably can't form a union because we're management. But I think the versions of us that do production, like when you're booking and producing the podcast and I'm editing, maybe we can unionize as those members of the podcast. I don't know. I haven't talked to the AFL-CIO about this yet.
I cannot create any more versions of myself. I wish I could have a couple of clones. That would be amazing. And if I could have clones, then yes, I believe in their right to unionize.
Okay. I think that is actually, I appreciate that take. And that's something people should be thinking about is like clones' right to unionize. I mean,
I support it.
I support it. We had a great guest this week. Do you want to tell us about our guest this week that we're going to get into in a few minutes?
Yes, we had Commissioner Shan Rose. She is a commissioner on the Orlando City Council. And I met Shan several years ago, actually. She was just a huge supporter of students taking action in their school government and really appreciate her taking the time to be here. And I think one of the things I really liked best about that conversation was her sharing her vision and her plan. And, I know it's come up a couple of times on the pod about, well, what is the vision? What is the plan? And she has one. And I appreciated that. Yeah.
And I thought she had some very thoughtful takes about the Pulse Crosswalk situation / tragedy and just absolute boot stomping that this state is doing. And then we got into a good conversation. I mean, as much as you can call it a good conversation about racism and, because we talked about a favorite book of hers, which we're going to link to called The Color of Law, which was just really interesting and really thoughtful. So a lot of great takes on a variety of subjects and grateful to have her on the pod.
For sure.
And we mentioned, this is our second commissioner. We had a county commissioner, Kelly Samarad, and this is Orlando City. So we're really spreading ourselves out.
We're trying.
We may have some scars, 5 scars.
Never going to forget that one.
Never going to forget. It's been a lovely weekend. We recorded our interview with Shan earlier in the weekend. It's now Labor Day. This is coming out the Tuesday after Labor Day. But it's been real lovely because this past week, and we celebrated this weekend, is our 1-year anniversary.
I know. It was so nice.
It was really, really wonderful. We went out to dinner. And by the way, this is the 1-year anniversary of our relationship, not of the podcast. The podcast is only a few months old. And when that anniversary comes, that'll be lovely. Not as important as our relationship. You would agree.
But can we go to Hillstone again?
Yes, we can go back to Hillstone. We made some friends. We talked to this woman, Sarah, at Hillstone, who's writing a book. Very excited for her. And then the night before, we met this gentleman, Paul, who's working as a video editor and working on his YouTube channel and video editing business. So I feel like we're making friends all around town.
I know. I love it. It's so interesting to hear people's backstories. And it's just a good reminder that you never really know, you really never know what someone is thinking about or the big ideas they're up to, just based on maybe what they're doing day to day. And I love that.
I love breaking down a server's barrier, because they're there and they're, have some level of, either peppiness or whatever, unless they're one of those mean servers, which, if you're working as a server, that's not an easy job. So I'm giving you the space to be mean. But a lot of times, there's this artificial niceness. And so just like getting to break down and actually talk to them is always enjoyable, and seeing who they really are.
Although I will say immediately after the conversation, I thought, man, maybe they start each day saying, if anyone asks me what I'm up to, I'm just going to make up this other persona and just say, today I'm going to be an author writing fantasy. Today I'm going to be a video editor for my new YouTube channel. So who knows?
Well, the video editor guy, his name is Paul, actually had a card and a YouTube channel. So I was able to verify.
Well, okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did I break down your idea? I'm sorry.
I'm making people more creative than perhaps they actually are.
Well, I mean, he's a video editor. He's pretty creative. Shouts to Paul if you're listening, if you found our podcast. Though I don't think we told him we had a podcast.
Our mistake. We're terrible at this.
Please, Paul, if you're listening, do rate and subscribe. We'll do the same for your YouTube channel. Okay. Also, an interesting week on the personal level. Had a very fascinating school board meeting this last week. A lot has been made about, the book ban situation. We'll get to that in a second. But a lot of commenters, and I did take note of one woman who came up during public comment and said, Christians are the only ethical people with standards. And as a Jewish person, I feel a little outed, and maybe I have no standards. Does that put some questions in your mind about this person that you're dating? Having dated for a year now, are you second guessing now that you've heard that comment?
Well, do you have standards?
I think I have very high standards, the highest. But people, it is public comment. People are allowed to say what they're allowed to say. Steph, what do you think? Only ethical people with standards?
No, I mean, first of all, I thought it was an interesting meeting during public comment. Yeah. We had a lot of people speaking about books, which had we haven't had as many people commenting on that lately, but a lot of people sort of on different sides of the thought process. And we also had a lot of students come, students speaking about immigrant students who were speaking about the fears that they're facing with ICE, coming close to the schools and just being in the neighborhoods and feeling like they needed more protection. So I will just start with the students because they were so powerful.
They were great. They also were not the ones who said Christians were the only ethical people with standards. So shouts to the students for not saying that. So thank you.
And also for answering the question you wish you were asked. They were wonderful and just so brave. And really what makes my day is when I see young people get engaged in the process. They figure out how the process works. Yeah. They can do it. You can all do it. Yeah. Okay. They figured out how to come make public comment. We can all figure out how to come and speak to what we believe in. And I really appreciated that.
Oh, and I was just going to say, like, in this time where we are so frustrated by certain institutions caving to this administration, a lot of times it is the people with the most on the line, the most vulnerable students who are willing to come up and speak out and say, we do not, we do not abide this. We need to fight back. And so just so much bravery, not something I ever did as a student. I was having enough trouble just getting to school. So I was not where they are, and kudos to them.
Yeah, so that was great. And then we did have another large contingent of people, like I said, talking about books. And you know what? I personally don't agree with what everyone said, but I absolutely appreciate anyone who takes the time to come and share their views. I am a big supporter of the First Amendment.
You do love that
amendment. I think we should be upholding the First Amendment in everything we do, actually. I also think it's when you hear people say things that maybe you don't personally agree with, I would rather have it out in the open. Let's understand what people really think. We can learn a lot about that.
Speaking of out in the open, actually, there was an interesting dynamic, which I don't believe I've seen before, in which commenters were stopped from talking about certain aspects of this pending litigation. So as we talked about previous weeks, there was a judge's decision that this bill in Florida that's behind so much of the book bans was actually unconstitutional. OCPS is part of that lawsuit. So there was a lot of people who were stopped from commenting about it. You have not been able to talk about this with me or with anyone else who's not on the board. Now that you are here unofficially, are you finally ready to break your silence and talk about this?
Wow, that's amazing. Now that I'm on the podcast, let's talk about pending litigation. This is the proper time, for sure.
Nobody's listening.
Oh my gosh.
But if you are listening, please rate and subscribe. If you want to hear about this pending litigation, 5 stars only.
Well, yeah. So hopefully we are getting to the end of it. You know, as we said, an order has been entered. So that's what I can say.
All right. Another 50 plus years of this, babe. I'm very excited. Well, maybe you probably will not. Hopefully you will not be in this pending litigation for the 50 plus years
I hope not.
of our relationship. Okay.
But you never know. You never know.
Well, you're term limited. So like in 50 plus years, you cannot still be on this board dealing with this piece of litigation. Okay, I'm going to shut up about that. Last thing related to the banned books. Actually, I had an improv show this last Friday at 12 Towns, great bar here in Orlando. And actually the theme of the improv show was banned books. And so I'm curious, I don't want to talk about my own work, though I will if someone forced.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about your own work?
Look, this was on the outline of what we were going to talk about it, and there was a clear transition point, so I made the transition point.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you. How did you like the show?
Oh, the show was great. I loved it. Like you said, the bar was a great venue, and I loved walking in, seeing a table of banned books in the bar, and the tables were full of people reading through the books, picking out passages or lines that they wanted the performers to use in the show. And then just seeing the different ways throughout the show in which, these themes or these lines or these, storylines were incorporated into the show. It was so funny. You all did a great job. I was so impressed. I mean, as we have discussed, I am not an improv performer, but so impressed with how you all just created just some good stuff out of some banned book lines.
It was a great, it was unfortunate, but a great theme. We had a lot of fun with it. And I've said this to you off mic, but I'm willing to say it on mic, which I think this is a little bit of a scene work. You and I, what we do right here, we are ourselves, but we are reacting in real time. Maybe there's not an audience live in front of us, but there's one listening to us and occasionally watching us. So I think you have way more improv skills than you let on. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate that. And also, don't say too much more. You're going to ruin this.
I don't know whether you're more tight-lipped about this litigation or your improv skills. Okay, close on a high note. That's what they tell me. Let's get to our interview with Commissioner Shan Rose. She was wonderful. Listen in, and thank you for joining us, as always.
Let's get to it. Commissioner Rose is on the pod today. Welcome, Commissioner Shan Rose.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. We're so delighted to have you in the home. I guess it's Steph's home, but it's also the home of the podcast.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, so welcome. Can you tell us a little bit, let's just get some background. Can you tell us what your role is in the city and kind of what that entails?
So I am the District 5 City of Orlando Commissioner. District 5 starts downtown and it goes all the way to Metro West. There's a lot of communities in between. It's about 18 to 20 communities. So I try my hardest not to name them because then if I forget one, I'm like...
People are mad.
Okay. But I proudly wear a t-shirt, and I probably should have bought it. I proudly wear a t-shirt with all of the communities on the back of the shirt. No, a little bit of background. Commissioner's role is a very packed answer. Ultimately, commissioner's role is making sure all services are met outside of your front door. That is literally what a commissioner does. From sidewalks to garbage, street lights to law enforcement, activities for the children, activity for seniors, crime, fires, and everything in between. So typically, as long as when you walk outside of your doors, and some of it also, because we have OUC, we actually technically own OUC. So, but again, everything outside of your door. One of the things that I've been intentional on since I've been elected is meeting people in needs inside of their home. So from food drives to most recently, we're starting a digital literacy program. We'll have some hotspot checkouts. So we're like full 360, making sure we're improving quality of life. And I think that's literally what a commissioner's role is, to improve your quality of life, no matter where you live, no matter how rich, no matter how poor, man, woman, child, making sure that everyone's needs are met. For me, I tell people, like, I make sure I serve my residents, my businesses, and my visitors. Like, making sure experience is everything. A little bit of background. Used to be a City of Orlando employee. So that's where I started off my like governmental career. Worked in the Community Redevelopment Agency. And so little snippet, basically Community Redevelopment Agency takes blighted areas and turns them into thriving areas. And so I was a part of that, got my bachelor's degree in business management, went down to the permitting office where I started on this journey of my public administration and master's. So for me, I'm working government, looking at the book, like, oh, this isn't functioning. You know, this community isn't functioning the way the book says it should be functioning. So really got in tune with creating a better quality of life while an employee at the city. And let's just say, I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do as an employee. It's hard. Let me say, at least as hard as I was doing it. So started my nonprofit, live in a Paramore community. And I think what I've been intentional on, it's purpose, presence, and putting the people of District 5 first. Safety, like when people ask me, what is my number one? Safety is my number one priority. And I'm gonna tell you why safety is a priority. Safe communities, everything falls in them. That includes affordable housing, because if we have safe communities and safe housing for people to live in, we have jobs, people are less likely to commit crimes. If safety is a priority, we have no potholes, we have sidewalks, we have proper sidewalks so people aren't tripping and falling. So that's why I tell people, like, safety is my platform.
Sometimes I trip and fall even if the sidewalk is perfectly fine, but that might just be
But no, it's important that we do have safe sidewalks, making sure folks are telling me, hey, there's a pothole, there's flooding. But if I keep safety at the top, then everything else falls in between. So I tell people, like, what's your top? That is my priority. Like, as long as we safe communities, as long as everyone, no matter it's the unhoused individuals, because they have a right to feel safe too, right? I've gotten complaints about some of the shelters, and I'm like, hey, these are the concerns. How do I help you figure these things out? Or it's the person who lives in the gated community in the district, right? So I want to make sure that everyone feels safe, no matter where they live, because we do have a couple of gated communities that I'm not even allowed in. And just for, like, when you're campaigning, because that's a part of life, those gated communities and those gated apartments hey, I'm the commissioner. But nope, doesn't matter. Do you have authorization to be here?
One of the things I'm thinking about as you're talking about safety is, I'm thinking about what's going on in this country, nationally, authoritarianism, et cetera, and I'm thinking about safety as your priority, as it should be, and everything flows from that, because if you don't have safe communities, it's, all the points you made. And one of the things our president is doing is, like, making people think they are unsafe everywhere. DC is unsafe, it's riddled with crime, so then they can do whatever they want to make things worse. It is like this cornerstone that we need to feel safe before we can flourish in other ways. And if we want to destabilize communities, destabilize cities, destabilize a nation's mindset, then make everyone feel like they're unsafe. And then what the solution I have, which is to bring in armed troops or whatever, it's like, I'm going to make things safe. And that's a little bit of a tangent, but I'm thinking about that as someone, because safety is your first priority, but you have so many other things you want to work on. And if people don't feel safe, and if they are not actually safe, it's harder to work on anything else, because safety is that number one thing.
But I would add to that. So it's important that we become a solution-based society. And I'm going to tell you why. So if you come to me right now and say, I don't feel safe, there's XYZ happening, what's the first thing I'm going to do? We're going to call law enforcement, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? But if you keep calling me and you're saying that law enforcement isn't working, then I'm going to have to find the next level of law enforcement. And so that's that quagmire that people have to start saying, here's my problem, but here's a potential solution, because what I may come up with may not be what you like.
Yeah.
So there's a big stir around the whole DC situation, right? But if you because I read comments and I'm like, let me just see. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe somebody's crazy. Maybe it's one party versus the other. But if you read comments, you'll see people like, I don't feel safe here, so I'm glad that he's here. So it's about the level of what do you want? What do you need to feel safe? What is it going to take for you? So like for me, I get a lot of residents in some of my communities who said, I just want a police officer driving through. Okay, cool. Hey, police chief, can you let the officers from this unit know to like cut through these streets when they're during their duty? Well, what may happen? Stephanie may not want all those. I'm just using as an example, not you physically, but like another resident may say, I don't want police officers here. Is there something going on, right? Because then you just asked for more police presence. She's like, is there something going on? Are they looking for somebody? Is somebody on the loose? So it's this quagmire of like, how do you make everyone feel okay and what their needs are, and how do you meet everyone's needs? And that's where, for me, it's communication. It's that open line of like, let's talk about things. Let's have community meetings to talk through things. Is that what everyone wants? Because if that's what I can get a consensus on, right? If I know this community has 100 strong people, if I can get 25 to 30 of them to show up to a meeting to talk about their concerns, then I can say, if I made this decision, I made it with a portion of this community's input. So now you go back to your neighbors and tell your neighbors who didn't show up, this is what we decided to do. So I think that that's the quagmire in how do you solve issues that a community is facing? Because everyone wants to be in a safe community, but unless you're in the hot seat, because that's what I'm in, right? I'm in the hot seat as the elected. I see a solution as something totally different than what you see a solution as. And so you the one with the problem, and if you didn't tell me this is how I think it should be solved, I'll go solve it the best way I know how. And so, again, I'm not defending. I'm just saying that there's another side of it from where I sit especially on the local level when it comes to safety. And then some of it maybe sometimes you just have to go talk to the people that's committing the crimes, right? And say, hey, you know you're committing a crime, right? And you know everybody's watching you committing this crime, and people are complaining about this crime that you're committing. Oh, okay, let me back up. Let me not do that. Let me not do that, period. And so some of that it's that catch-22 of how do we solve everyone's needs?
Yeah. Well, you two are both thoughtful elected officials, but I'm not. So I will say, like, there's plenty of people who are just full of shit, and like they're just like they see a black or brown person, and they're like, I don't feel safe, so or what have you. So anyway, I think you're right, and that is very thoughtful. But there's a lot of people are just poisoned with this idea that their community is unsafe for reasons that are not based in reality, and I think as an elected official, like you are talking to people, you're collecting the data, you're talking to experts, and you are sussing out what reality is. But unfortunately, a lot of people in this country are not quite based in reality. But that's my take.
I can agree. And I definitely can agree. I wake up every day and I'm like, what's today gonna bring? Because you just never know.
That's
When we talk about safety, like crime has been down 27% since I've been elected.
I mean, that's really incredible. And I don't know that people realize that, because you keep hearing downtown is unsafe, but I don't think that the data really backs that up.
So I would say and I read it in a group chat. I read it in like a Facebook group. So I can't say that. It wasn't something that I said. It was someone said, there are racist individuals that just don't like black and brown people having a good time. And so like there's this Facebook group, and every week they post black and brown people hanging out downtown. And so I was making for a while, it was like every week I'm like, what do I see wrong? Like, show me what's wrong here. I see people outside spending money. Right. And then someone came and said, they're racist in this group, so you're not going to see anything positive. I'm like, the streets are filled. There's people everywhere, which means some kind of money, even if they just paid $10 to park. There's money being spent here some way, somehow. And I had to come to a realization that, you know, we are still, even though it's 2025, black and brown people are not accepted everywhere, right? We are not, black people are not wanted. We're still in some places still unwanted, unfortunately. But I want to tell people we're not going anywhere. Like, we're here to stay. And I think that's been a challenge for me, because sometimes you want to call it out and you're like, I don't want to accuse anybody of being racist. But sometimes it's just like, it does become overbearing. And then I'm in a point now, and I'm in a space now where I'm like, I'm not going to respond to everything. Yeah. everything doesn't need a response.
Good for you. Good for you.
I don't have to prove anything. Yeah. And then sometimes it's like, I know the politics, what's happening behind the scenes. And sometimes I just want to tell people it's politics. It's nothing more than that. And I'm like, nope, gotta keep, you still gotta have the poker face. You still have to, there's some cards you have to leave. But I'm like, call me for a media interview and I'll tell you. Because that's the only time I can, right? Like, I try to hold some of my cards in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, when I see something or I hear something or someone makes a comment, I'm always running to staff like, hey, is this true? Is that true? Is this true? Okay, cool. I got the truth. And I actually posted it yesterday, like, everything doesn't need to be fact checked, right? Because if you sit and you fact check everything that's posted on social media, I'd say most of the things you scroll on social media, you'd be fact checking like, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Post memorials is the crosswalk. It's a perfect example. Like, that's not true. It's bigger than that. That's not exactly what it is. Like, y'all are looking at it from a group, but it's bigger than that, right? And so like that's the other part. I'm slowly learning. Everything doesn't need to be factual.
Well, you brought it up, and this is the Pulse Crosswalk has been such a huge story here, and it's reached nationally. Do you mind? I know, again, a lot of people know what's happened, but maybe not everyone. Could you talk us through what happened at that Pulse Crosswalk, and like what is the issue that we are still dealing with, and maybe speak to some of those comments you made at that caucus meeting?
The Florida Department of Transportation did not notify us that they were coming. They came in the middle of the night. They painted over the sidewalk. We do have security that's there on site. There is a security guard that has been on site. And it was kind of the outrage, like, oh my God, what happened to the crosswalk? Because, people, that's most people's average day that live in that area, whether they're going to or from work, that's right. What happened to the crosswalk? We found out the same way everybody else did. Waking up, and the crosswalk was changed. What folks are missing is the bigger picture, which is the government agency is not communicating. And if the state could just come in and swipe something away without even notifying us, giving us an opportunity, what else will they take away, right? When we talk about not wanting, and there's a party that says no big government, we want home rule and y'all take care of what y'all think is best. So if we think that enhanced crosswalks are better for our community because we have the data to show that accidents have been reduced by X amount at this since we've replaced this, then how can big government come tell local government what to do? If they'll paint over a crosswalk, what's next? And that's what we have to be concerned about, because if you elect, FDOT employees aren't even elected. Let's start there, right? They're appointed. Let's start there, right? And let me say this publicly. I love my colleagues over at FDOT because we work really well together when there's needs, when there's different things, different projects. But an appointed body of individuals are making that. What else will the other appointed bodies do, right? What other in the middle of the nights that will... We are elected on a local level to take care of our local community, right? The state is supposed to oversee what we do, not impede, not step in and say, hey, we're going to do this because. Then what's interesting, after we outcried as a municipality, the mayor and some of us, other city council members, then the state sends in a letter and say, hey, you need to clear up all the rest of these. It's like, oh, well, how nice of you after you painted over one to then send us a notice and already started painting over the other ones that you're telling us. And it's just been a madhouse about it. But it's like I tell folks, it's bigger than just painting over a memorial site for individuals. It's stepping in and not communicating, taking over home rule. What else is next?
Steph, I don't know if you have any feelings about unelected overseers.
So interesting that yes, these unelected political appointees who just want to be so very engaged in the day-to-day business that we're doing as elected, really representatives of our people and of our communities. And I think it's really important how you phrase that, because I think for any given person, and I will say, I think the city of Orlando is just incredibly supportive of the LGBTQ community, and we should be, and I'm proud of that. But I will say any given person might not care that much about a crosswalk, or they might not care that much about a book, or they might not care that much about, this thing over here. But when you look at it in totality, the problem is what you said. It's that that violation of kind of home rule. And every time you allow that to happen without speaking up, you give up some of your power, and you are doing a disservice to the people who voted you into office because you're giving up some of their power.
That's our responsibility, is to answer to our constituents. Like I said, for me, it's my residents, my businesses, and my visitors. So I get visitor comments all the time about how something happened that they liked, they didn't like. Okay, well, you may not be a voter, but you're a visitor, right? Which means you're going to spend money, and I'm going to be able to take the money that you spend, and I'm going to be able to service the residents and the businesses here. So it's, how do I answer to them? Whatever that answering to them may look like. I'll use an example. We had a young lady that went to, I want to say, the Kia Center, which is in the district. And she sent the comment. She was like, we need non-alcoholic options. I'm like, do we have non-alcoholic? So I run the staff. I'm like, hey, do we have non-alcoholic options? Where are they? Who are they? What do we need to do? How do we advertise? And they were like, and then staff sent me this, okay, let's figure out advertising. And it's in that moment because I have to respond to, again, residents, business, and visitors. So that's what we're supposed to do as electeds. That's what, there's grant opportunities and there's funding. That's what makes us go to the state and say, hey, state, we want to do this. You're a school board member. If y'all decide that y'all want to take a portion of school board money and spend to feed the kids and make sure that the kids don't have to pay for lunch and breakfast, that's a decision that you made, that you felt was the right thing to do no matter what. That's what we're governed to do. As long as our books are open and we're all required to do audits and turn in audits. And typically we have internal audits and we have external audits annually. As long as we do, the book is open. And that's what we did when Doge came. I'm like, okay, cool. What do we need to do? I looked at, so Orange County got served their letter before we did at the city. And I looked and I was like, oh yeah, most of that stuff is public records anyway. I'm not even we're sitting there, we're not even worried about it. We're very fiscally responsible. But I will say the disheartening thing is when individuals don't live in our communities and they live in their communities and they live wherever they live. So whether they live in Tallahassee or wherever else they may live, right? If they're not living here, they may see some of the things that we provide to our community as unnecessary and what some may classify as wasteful spending, but that's not. That's serving the needs of our community. So for example, we're concerned that they may say we're spending too much on homelessness, right? And then it's like, wait, what? We've got a homeless population within our community that we've got to serve. So that's where, as electeds and our upper management staff and leadership are kind of on pins and needles about, is we know we're fiscally responsible. We're doing the right things. Actually, the city of Orlando, we haven't raised taxes. Our millage rate has been the same for, I want to say, about over a decade. And so we're not worried about that. But what we are concerned about is oh my gosh, we hope they don't come and tell us that you should be spending this and you should be doing this a little bit differently. We hope that they don't come, we had to suspend our MWBE program.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. Can you explain what that is?
So MWBE is Minority Women Business Enterprise. So it is very well known that minorities and women through time have not had equal opportunities when it comes to contracting in society. And so most municipalities prior to the current administration had something called MWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise, which created an opportunity and basically let the big contractors know you must have minorities and you must have women and or both on your contract in order to even get the contract. And so there'd be a certain percentage of your contract that had to be, and typically it's about 26% of your project had to be MWBE. And we're literally, it was another in the middle of the night. So we were awarded a contract so we own the airport. So we are their fiscal sponsors. So things, City of Orlando is very unique. We own a lot of things. And so other folks are basically have the contract. So we own the airport and basically GOA has the contract. And so we do a lot of the fiscal. So they'll apply, we'll be the applicant, and we'll be their fiscal sponsor. So the money will flow through us to them. And literally, it was in the middle of the night. I'll never forget that I got the email and they was like, yep, moving forward, we're gonna have to suspend the program. I'm like, wait, what? We gotta do what?
No, wait, where did that come from? From
our legal department. Okay. So what happened is the funds were about to, so it was said, and I can't remember the administration number. So the president signed off an executive order saying what he called radical programs, no more of them. And so like, we're like, okay, it's an executive order. Who's going to uphold that, right? And that's ultimately like every executive order does not necessarily have to be, not necessarily, some of them may have to go to Congress for a vote, et cetera. What did happen, so it was signed, no more programs that would be race or gender based, giving additional points and services too. So basically everything just had to be equal. Doesn't matter, all contracts need to be treated the same, doesn't matter who you are. And literally it was in the middle of the night. We were getting an FAA grant for the airport. And in it, our legal department and the mayor had to certify we did not have any type of programs that could potentially disenfranchise or would give, I think the wording was like special preferential treatments to an ethnicity or a gender. So no gender or ethnicity based programs. And so here's the thing, right? Because here goes this, you should fight back. And I'm like, this is $35 million. Can we fight back on 35? And if we fight back on 35, that means anything else is going to get nixed too, right? So we had to suspend indefinitely, and they're gone. Our MWBE program is suspended indefinitely. We are transitioning to what would most likely, because we haven't fully gotten there, what will most likely be a small business enterprise. But literally, no more minorities and women would get preferential treatment for projects, knowing that we have been disenfranchised. Because I fall into both categories. I'm a minority and I'm a woman, right? But it speaks to what I would say, it's quote, like, all people are treated equal. It's like, are we really, right? When you look at poverty levels, when you look at job opportunities, when you look at management in companies and you say, okay, without some of these DEI programs, it was proven, like people went back so while, during 2020 George Floyd era where we had this big DEI rollout from a lot of the companies, it was statistically proven that minorities and women were not getting the same equal opportunities and jobs, the same equal opportunities in, I'd go as far as saying products in your stores, right? So, while some folks are protesting Target was one of them that said, hey, we realize that there is an equal opportunity. They created programs to allow Black-owned businesses to put their products in these stores so folks could buy them, right? And so in a time when big private companies were waking up to realize some of our policies don't necessarily allow for equal opportunity, we're going to change them. And comes an administration and says, do away with it all. Now, what I will say is there are folks who took advantage over the last 5 years and have done well for themselves and have elevated themselves and made the right choices where there were opportunities available and have taken their career to the next level. So when we look at Red Lobster just hired a Black CEO and a young Black CEO at that, right? When we look at, and I look around myself and when I walk in rooms and I'm like, okay, there's a woman in power. Okay. And look, and now I'm like, oh, DEI is canceled. Okay. So we are doing something right here. So I say that, shout out to the ones who did take advantage when there was a time where they were sending people to training classes and they were sending people to school and they were saying, here, take grabs. Here's some, and some may say it was just free opportunity. No, here were some opportunities. And, shout out to those who did take advantage. But with the cuts, there has been there's been data that has come out that says that Black people have negatively benefited and are the ones losing these executive jobs during this DEI cut. It's like data to prove those were opportunities that help. But now that companies have gone away from it, well, maybe I created this department just around that and this position just around that. Well, if I now have to do away with the department, then I got to do it with your position. Will I bring you back? Potentially, right? But will you be, if you were here in this, and I'll just use the word, a DEI role, because there were some organizations that had whole DEI roles. If I had a DEI role and now I have to cut the DEI role, well, if I got to cut the role, I'm going to cut your job, and then I'm going to say, well, I'm going to take some time. Do I need the role? What did the role do? And so some folks, like, there's numbers that show that. Like, there are a lot of Black women, especially Black women, that have lost some really good executive jobs with this DEI cut across this nation.
It's so terrible. I mean, this country will never cease to cut off its nose despite its face to be racist. So, like, even though diversity, equity, inclusion, like, makes companies better, makes organizations better, more viewpoints, more talent, etc., we would, and I'm not putting words in either of your mouths, but we would rather have this white supremacist nation than to, like, do what is best for all of us and have a more diverse leadership, more diverse workforce, et cetera, even though it makes us all better. We would rather just cut that off. And, because there's so many people who feel like when, Black or brown or people of color are succeeding, that somehow they didn't get it fairly. And as you're talking about it, I like, ironically wonder in my mind, I'm like, oh, in the founding of this country, I wonder if, like, white men have had some sort of advantage for the last 250 years. Like, I wonder if anyone has given...
The people who actually wrote the Constitution and the laws, for example. I don't know. Is that an advantage? I don't know.
I don't
Could
know.
it be? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so...
That's where leadership comes in.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I have been intentional on is when I walked into this role, there was an uncertainty about the presidency, right? So I walked into this role during the special election. I came in and I said, my goal, my only goal, is to educate, right? Let me educate, let me educate, let me educate. Because if I can educate you, then if any barriers come up or any walls are taken down that were helping you, then I put you on game. I put you on speed. I gave you the job opportunities. I helped you with the housing opportunities. So that's what I've been intentional on, like educating folks through communication. So we're communicating. I tell folks my social media belongs to everybody. So I've been intentional when I go places, and I tell people, if you own a business, send me a graphic, I'll post it. If you whether you do a cleaning business, you do a pressure washing business, you sell cookies, you do event planning, send me your business so I can post it, right? So I don't live in this space of saying, here's this Black owned event planning business. Here's a business if you're looking for one, right? Here's this special that this company is having or that company is having. Because in that moment, I'm helping to elevate you. So I'm educating the community through my communication channels about what's available to them. It's up to them now to say, okay, you know what? I do need somewhere to go get my nails done. You know what? I do need my house cleaned or my carpet cleaned or something. So that's what I've been intentional on doing since I've been elected. It's how do I communicate what options are available, what business assistance. Since I've been elected, $1.7 million in this last year in business incentives in the downtown corridor, which includes the Paramore community, making sure that folks that say, I have a dream to move to the next level. So for me, it's going to be a big highlight in the coming weeks. We have a ghost kitchen in the district, and one of our ghost kitchen stations or companies are moving into brick and mortar. So like, I'm going to make a big thing about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make a huge thing.
I want to go. I want to check that out.
But it was one of the organizations that we had given business assistance to. So I'm intentional on, like, how do we help people with their dreams? What services do we offer? Because again, if I happen to educate and all minorities or women take advantage, then all minority women take advantage, right? I didn't say, hey, wake up, minorities. But no, intentional about serving. For me, it's, I have the core of downtown. So creating a vision that includes everyone's voices on where we're moving forward and how we're moving forward to ensure that everyone's included. Yeah. Making sure that, residents know, hey, you have a commissioner. Because for a long time, folks, especially in the downtown corridor, I'm intentional. I'm the youngest on the dais, I'm the youngest elected on. on all the levels, on all the municipalities, both at the city of Orlando as well as the county.
Love it.
And so for me, it's like, I want to make sure we are holding on to things, or we're creating something new for the next generation.
And I think you've always been so clear about that. I mean, it was very clear that you were running to bring new ideas and to think about future generations. And you've done such a good job of staying true to that. And I appreciate that. And when you talk about educating your community, whether that's showcasing businesses or just educating them on what your job is so important, so that they know when things start to change or they start to go awry, they can start to ask questions on their own. Like, that's weird. I thought that was our city commissioner's job to do, or, I thought that was our city's job to do. So I appreciate that. So I just wanted to ask we wanted to end on kind of like a fun question. Mm-hmm. So we were reading, I don't know where we saw this, but we saw that you mentioned in 2021, your favorite book is Color of Law. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that? Like, just let's talk about books.
So that is I tell everyone, especially some of my director staff at the city of Orlando who are not Black, and I'm like, read The Color of Law, because there's this mindset of Black people are just angry. It's like, no, Black people aren't just angry. We've been disenfranchised. We continue to be disenfranchised. And so I think there's a reason to be upset. I think there's a reason to be angry. I think when we talk about police brutality, when we talk about housing, when we talk about equal opportunity, we talk about the wealth gap, Black people have a reason to be angry. So for me, The Color of Law is my favorite book. I tell city staff, I'm like, if you want to understand the Black community, go read The Color of Law. But in the book, it talks about redlining. It talks about what we're going through, right? What does leadership look like? What should leadership look like? Housing. So the average person doesn't know. Affordable housing was never created for Black people. While minorities are living them now, it was created for white people. It was created so that white people could get the upper hand. When they started realizing, white people they took advantage. They moved in, they were able to save, and then they moved to the suburbs. So then Black people got the leftovers. And so leftovers have always been a thing in the Black community. Down to books. When we think back in the days with books and Black communities, they got the rundown books after the white schools were done with them. Mm-hmm. So The Color of Law is eye-opening to get an understanding of how a white person could do better in society, and from my perspective, from my lens. And I love the book. There's parts of Orlando that's mentioned in the book, but it's an understanding of, okay, this is really based in like the 1940s and 50s. Like, man, we're in 2025 and we're still doing some of the same things. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're rolling back so much.
So those, so for, people, Caucasians that say, hey, I believe in helping the minority people. Okay, well, go read this book and then come back to me and say, are you doing enough? Is it enough? Are you, when we look at some people call it choice versus having to do it, right? And you get some of these communities where a child doesn't choose to be one of 7 with the mom who can't afford to keep food in the house. Mm-hmm. So is it a choice if they make the decision to say, I'm gonna go outside and there's somebody selling dope, I'm gonna go make some money so I don't have to see my mom struggle. Or I could just get a meal, right? Mm-hmm. Or I just get a new pair of shoes because the shoes that I have are hand-me-downs from my last sibling. So it's one of those, it's eye-opening in that children, and it's how do we change some of the things, some of our societal norms, especially for our kids. And so I posted on social media a couple weeks ago and I said, hey parents, stop telling your kids you don't have it, just tell them no. When they ask for something, don't say, hey, when I get paid I'm gonna do it. Just say no, or I'll let you know when. And so I was having this conversation with my partner and I said to him, we're talking, and I was like, what made you make some of the choices you made when you were feeling like, or what did you see some of the people around you, why were they making their choices? And he'd say, it's funny you asked that. Like, I had a cousin that said that they sold drugs because they didn't have clothes and they didn't want their mom to struggle to have to get them clothes to go back to school. So they just wanted to make sure that they had school clothes without having to interfere. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's the reason why some of your people around you made those decisions. But so for me, I'm gonna be transparent. I did not grow up in the Paramore community. I grew up in Brooklyn. I didn't grow up in low income housing. I did grow up in affordable housing, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a we made, but we weren't like until we started moving on up like Jefferson's.
Where in Brooklyn did you grow up?
Flatbush. So I grew up originally in New York between Tilden and Beverly, and then we bought a house of Clarksville between Bethany and Rogers. So like I'm a real Flatbush girl. But I say that like I want to get an understanding, because I can't lead unless I understand. And so it's like, why is one area known as, you know, the ghetto, and why is it that we can't overcome the crime in that community? You know, you get a mom of, you know, 2, 3, 4 kids. She's single. Goes back to the color of law. So what ultimately happened is that HUD would do inspections, and when they would do the inspections, they were inspecting to make sure there wasn't a man in the house. So if the woman was saying that she was poor, she had to be poor by herself with her kids. Then you had the crack epidemic and the crack era, which then separated Black families even further, right? And so when we look at the things that we've been through as a race, it's one of those like, okay, well, how do we overcome that? And so that's what, you know, the call of law really exposes. Like, why is it, goes back, it will tell you, and so I ask people, I'm like, when you drive in certain communities and you see people, dope dealers selling drugs on the corner, the book tells you why. Because the men were pushed out the house. So you're not inside the house going to make a transaction in and out. You got to stand in the corner, because if the HUD inspector comes, there can't be a trace of a man inside. So the man would sit outside. So that's why I want to tell folks, like, they say, well, why are communities shaped the way they are? Well, how to read the color of law and you'll get an understanding. I tell folks we cannot police our way through any problem that we're having in society, whether it's unhoused, whether it's youth situations, adult situations. What we've got to do is we've got to break every single one of them down little by little, piece by piece, and work at them. So for me, like, I look at homelessness in 5 categories. Homelessness is, you have people that just don't want to live anywhere. They don't want any responsibility. So, okay, let me find some forests that we're not cutting down anytime soon so they can live in a forest somewhere, because I don't want you on my streets. But find you somewhere that you don't have any responsibilities. And you have the drug addiction. You have the alcohol addiction. You have the mental health. And then you have finances. And so I'm intentional about, like, I've identified these 5. How can I do something for each of these 5? What services do we need? What do I need to do? Which comes back to we had talked earlier before we got on camera about a homeless community court, because you're in one of those 5 categories. How do I help you get out of this homelessness based on those categories and help you to get back on the right track? So we've got programs. We just partnered with Central Care Mission, who their focus is going to be on alcohol and drug addiction. And so the unhoused population in those 2 areas, how do we get them off the streets? How do we get them clean? Finances, individuals who are homeless, who are working but can't seem to get into place, because most places you have to have first month and you have to have a deposit. We've got funding for that, right? And then mental health is a very packed situation. We're doing what we can, but I've said it publicly. When the administration, and it's not the current administration, when the administration decided to criminalize mental health illness several decades ago, we got to a place where mental health institutions were turned to prisons. We've got to reverse that. We've got to, in our region, we need a long-term mental health facility, because the 60 days, the 90 days in and out of an Aspire is not what we need. If an individual is identified as someone who needs this, they just cannot function. And unfortunately, it could be a veteran, right? Who has PTSD from serving in combat wars, that they're just never going to be, they're never going to be the same. There's going to be something that triggers them. They still deserve a quality of life, but unfortunately they find themselves in, and I've got a few situations of that. They find themselves, we get them in a place because they have all of the, they have all the services. They're retired, they have benefits, et cetera, but they can't get along with their neighbors. So they get evicted. Okay, then we put them in another place, and they go through the same thing. So does that individual really need to just be single living and living on their own? Or can we put them in somewhere where it's similar to an apartment, but they have 24/7 wraparound services? So if there is an episode, I know that there's someone on staff to deal with it, as opposed to, unfortunately, some of our apartment management has become social workers and caseworkers, and that's not what their job is. Their job is to make sure that the grass is cut, the hallways are clean, and that the building is functioning, right? And so that's what I think, like that is my 4-year, what do we look at? How do we look at a long-term mental health facility in this community? For me, how do I connect more with my businesses? Because there's an ebb and flow right now with the economy. It's up, down. It's good one day. You could drive today and gas could say $2.89, and then you drive tomorrow and say $3.15. Like, what? What happened? What did DJ T say this morning? Like, that's literally my life now. Like, I'm like, okay, what did he say this morning? Because gas was like 15 cents cheaper yesterday.
Yeah.
So those are my next 4 years, because I am up for re-election this year. So those are my next 4 years, focusing on the businesses and making sure that our businesses are thriving. And like, what do I need? You know, I get the phone calls of, oh, Commissioner, man, I just closed my door. You just closed your doors. Why did you tell me that your doors you were failing, right? Mm-hmm. So being able, like, that'd be my next 4 years, and really hearing more from the people on what more we can do. You know, we've got, when I ran in 21, there's a gap at the city of Orlando, or there was, let me do the past. There was a gap for middle schoolers. And so when I ran in 21, I said, we need more middle school programming. And that's important because, you know, focusing on elementary school, we got 21st century program, the all-star after school hour, all-stars. And then high schoolers again, you know, high schools have so many clubs and things that they can go to, but then we missed that middle school. And so in a low-income community, that is your turning point, right? Mm-hmm. There is someone on the corner that will distract you from whatever your path was when you were in elementary school. Because typically they say, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? So whatever that path is in that middle school era, if we don't have something for you to do, unfortunately, the streets are ready for you in the low-income communities. Mm. So since I've been elected, we've kicked off our middle school teen program. It's been going really well because that's a group for me, right? But I want to expand it. I want to figure out, how do we make sure everyone has a program for middle school, that we don't forget that that's the rocky age where, you know, everybody's not an athlete, so everybody can't go play football, everybody can't go play, you know, little league basketball. What is there for everything for middle school kids to do? So that'll be my next 4 years. And safety.
And safety. Well, I'm not your comms director, and I don't work on your campaign, but you do have a great through line of everyone deserves an opportunity. Everyone should be listened to. Everyone should have a stake in the city of Orlando and in District 5. So Steph has endorsed you as I understand it. I don't have a platform other than this podcast, but I endorse you. So for whatever that is worth. But thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Really appreciate it. And we'll put a link to the book. It's The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America. So we'll put a link to that in the show description. Steph and I are going to check it out. And I'm sure we'll ping you when we've read it.
Oh my gosh. Send me all your feedback. Okay. And so, like, what I'm saying.
Book club.
So no. It's definitely something worth it. But then use real life on it, right? Like,
for sure.
Drive through a community. I'll take you on a tour because everybody doesn't feel comfortable. I'll take you on a tour. I'm not going to name which U.S. Senator's office, but a couple of years ago I did that with the U.S. Senator's office. And I said, because I live in a space, yes, there's a Republican Party. Yes, there's a Democratic Party. Yes, I'm a Democrat. But I still need to be able to work with both parties. Yeah. So when you hear things, you know, that's not true. So I took a U.S. Senator's district aide into the community. He was like, they're doing what over there? Like, are you safe? And I'm like, I live here. Like, it's fine. Yeah. I was like, but it's not okay. This is what, when we ask for money for things, this is what we're asking for money. Like, we're not trying to fatten our pockets or no, this is what we're trying. We're trying to provide social services to cut this out. And he watched a drug transaction happen. He watched a prostitution transaction happen. He saw potholes. He saw rundown buildings. I said, so, you know, for me, and this is before I was elected, I was just a community member, but I was fighting because there is a divide here in Orange County between party lines, right? And then when I got into certain roles, I realized there was a huge party line difference. And it was kind of like Orange County was like on the back burner. I'm like, no, hold on. I got to do something. I got to bring real life. So that's why I'll take y'all on a tour to look at some of that book in real life. Because there are some parts of the community that you could still see that. But I took him, and the floodgates have opened. When we apply for grants now, I'll make a phone call and say, hey, we're about to turn in this grant. And they're like, I sent you and sis. And I'm like, but it's because you saw it, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just hey, we're describing the food desert to you, because we are in a food desert in most of the district. I'm not just, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Hey, you want something to drink? Where are you going to get it from? You want to go, you see the dope dealer standing selling drugs? You want to go get something to drink right there? And he looked and he's like, okay, wait, this doesn't make sense. People actually live like this, but it's, so when y'all are done reading The Color of Law, and I challenge all of the listeners.
Yeah.
Hit me up after y'all are done reading The Color of Law, and I will take you on a tour to see how that book is still real life in some communities.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Well, I love that. And I love that as a just community advocate, you were taking a senator around to showcase your community. And I think it really speaks to why people trust you and elected you, because you were doing the work way before you were elected, and you continue to do it now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Such a delight.
All right. Oh, and wait, one last thing I wanted to ask. When is your election?
November 4th, 2025, Tuesday. I'm giving rides to the polls. Y'all need to all register to vote by mail. Make it a smooth transition. But I'm giving rides to the poll November 4th, 2025.
Okay, November 4th, make sure you're registered to vote. If you want to request by mail, you have time to do that now.
407-836-2070 is the Supervisor Elections Office.
Dang, she is on it. I love it. Okay. All right, well, thank you for being on. This has been great.
Been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Okay.